welcome back. I have a very special guest today. I have Jessica here with me, and we're going to be chatting about her story and hearing her journey with Turner syndrome. So I'm really excited to get to talk with her, and I will let her introduce herself.
Hi guys, so I am Jessica. I am almost 29 years old. I'll turn 29 in August, and I was diagnosed with Turner syndrome actually before birth. I have the classic karyotype. I have two younger brothers, and I live in near Vancouver, Canada, and so I'm excited to share my story with you guys today.
Yay, that's so great. Okay, so I am always curious about the diagnosis. So you were diagnosed before birth. So what were the red flags that happened?
Okay, so I think it was my mom's 16-week ultrasound. When she went in, they saw what's called the fetal hydroma, I believe it's called. So a sac of fluid behind my neck. And so that kind of tipped them off that something was up. So they did an amniocentesis, and the amniocentesis came back, like I said, with the classic karyotype. So XO, however you want to classify it. So yeah, that's that. I believe it was around 16 weeks that my mom found out, and given like most mothers with babies with Turner syndrome, when they find that sac of fluid, they kind of go, oh, this baby only has like a 1 to 2% chance of making it to term. So pretty grim odds. And so my family happens to be a family of faith. So my parents reached out to their church family for prayers. And obviously I ended up making it to term. So yeah, that's my diagnosis story.
That is almost the exact same as mine. I mean, it was the same red flags and everything. So
yeah,
what has been the biggest way or ways that Turner's has impacted you so far?
I mean, just growing up as a little kid, it was more the social aspects of, I had from the fetal hydroma lingering, I had a droopy eye because there had been fluid that didn't drain until later and affected the development of my eye muscles. I had short stature, I had the webbed neck. So there were just a lot of physical things that kids kind of bullied me for. And then it was navigating the difficulties in school with math. Thankfully, in terms of physical health, for a long time, that was really good. I still got the normal heart tests every year, the thyroid tests, those things done by my endocrinologist. And thankfully, those always came back clear. So growing up, it was more the social stuff. And just, never feeling like I quite fit in. As I've gotten older, when I was 24, I got diagnosed with Crohn's disease, which is an autoimmune disease of the gut. It causes inflammation of the gut lining, and that my mom and I didn't realize, like autoimmune disease, we were told from I was little that Turner syndrome kind of can increase your risk for certain autoimmune diseases, but the ones they always tested for were thyroid disease, diabetes, celiac. So IBD was never something, inflammatory bowel disease is another name for it, is something we never really knew had a connection to Turner's until I was actually diagnosed. So that's been my latest challenge to navigate. Last year, almost a year ago, I had to have surgery just because of the long-term damage that the disease had done to my gut, scarring and stuff. So, but thankfully I'm in remission now. But I think that's the biggest recent challenge. I mean, there's so much with Turner's, right? Like
Yes.
I could name so many things. I mean, looking back on it, I never did the growth hormone injections, and I kind of, that's something I regret looking back. But for up until I was 8 years old, even here in Canada, it wasn't covered. And by the time it was covered, my parents just didn't want to put me through an injection every single day. So I'm only about 4'8", and that has challenges too every day.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are just a few to name.
Few of the fun things we get to navigate. So
Yes, exactly.
I do um I do want to talk a little bit about the autoimmune part of things because
Yes.
that is touched on some. I know I've tried to talk about it. Um to my understanding, it really is just our immune system, just in the same way everything else is affected. It can be
Mhm.
affected, and it's called immunodeficiency or immuno. That sounds like it's more severe than it could be, but basically, our immune system not being as strong as it could be opens us up
Mhm.
to more autoimmune conditions and things like that. Um,
Yeah.
what would you say to someone that themselves is just getting diagnosed with either Crohn's disease or one of the other autoimmune diseases that can happen? Is there anything that really helped you as you were navigating that?
Um, I think one, like, find yourself a good um, specialist and doctor, one that you really click with and that you trust, and don't be afraid um, to switch if you feel that, especially because in the beginning you'll have lots and lots of questions, a ton of questions, and you want someone who's going to actually take the time to listen to those questions and who you feel comfortable um, talking about symptoms with and feel really understands the disease and explains it in a way that you can understand. So that's really important. I actually switched specialists for my Crohn's disease because I didn't click with my first GI. I actually switched to someone who, although they were farther away from where I live, they actually specialized specifically in IBD, because a specialist, like especially gastroenterologists, there's so many other things that they deal with. So I found getting one that specializes in the actual area of IBD specifically, they had more time for my questions and for appointments. The second thing that I found very helpful, but also was, a bit of a challenge, was switching to a diet that was more, whole foods, not necessarily plant-based, but whole foods, nothing with a lot of, additives, nothing with a lot of sugar, just food the way God intended it, so to speak, I found has been very, very helpful. And that can be a hard switch for people to make. Especially for me, I found that difficult because I think for us with Turner syndrome, like I said, with the social part, we can already find it hard to feel like we fit in with our peers. And having dietary restrictions can feel like just something else on top that makes us feel different or isolates us, especially when, going out to restaurants is a huge social thing. And if you can't eat at every single restaurant, if you have to only can eat at specific ones that cater to your dietary needs, that can be difficult. But it really was important in, reducing flare-ups, reducing the severity of flare-ups, just really, really, really important component with any autoimmune disease, not just one of the gut, but any disease that causes inflammation anywhere in the body.
Yeah, absolutely. And the specialist aspect of it too, whatever area you are struggling with, finding a specialist in that, particularly one super interested in your specific diagnosis, is, oh my gosh, I feel like it makes the world of difference. And that, oh man, I cannot say that enough.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, so that was something huge for me.
Yeah.
And I mean, even that goes, I think, for our endocrinologist too. Like, not like there's so many components to endocrinology that if you get someone who's their main focus for almost all of their career has been just diabetes, they might not understand every aspect of Turner syndrome and what things come with it to look out for. So I also um, switched endocrinologists. And yeah, so it's, yeah, like you said, just like specialists make a world of difference. You have to feel comfortable with your doctors.
Yes. Yeah. And the whole foods part, oh man, while it can be so difficult, there's so many aspects of our health that impacts. And until you make those switches and feel that difference, you never know what type of things could be helped by that.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, because there's so many, like, I want to share too, like about, I think it was my blood work last year from my endocrinologist. Although my TSH levels have been completely fine, she ran something else called thyroid paradise antigen, something that measures if you have antibodies to your thyroid, that can be an indicator of, risk for thyroid disease. And mine did come back abnormal, but my TSH has still since then stayed the same and in normal range. And I think a big part of that does have to do with the changes that I've made in my diet. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it's huge. And I love how you described it. It doesn't have to be any particular foods you are or are not eating, but it's just about getting that food in its most natural state.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
And oh
So,
man, that can take some work, but it is well worth it.
yeah. Yeah. Especially for us women who have so many things that we're at risk for, right?
Yes, absolutely. It's just I feel like it's a part of the foundation of taking care of ourselves that can get looked at, and oh yeah, it's important, but then until we make those switches and see it, we don't realize how important of a foundation of taking care of ourselves it really is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm also curious about, because you're in Canada, And I
Yeah,
know Canada has a different healthcare system than the States. And
right.
I don't actually know a ton about the details of it or anything, but I'm curious what your experience has been getting things for Turner syndrome covered or working with insurance and within the healthcare system.
Yeah. So like prescriptions, like my hormone replacement therapy, um, I have to pay what's called a dispensing fee, and it's like $37 whenever I have to pick up my prescription. So that's usually every 3 months. But otherwise, like um, it's covered. And what happens is each year we have something called a deductible. So um, I I think with what I earn, my deductible, like as soon as you reach a certain amount of money that you paid out for prescriptions, then the rest of your prescriptions for that year, you don't have to pay for it all, like dispensing fee, nothing. Um, so in terms of like my Crohn's meds are my most expensive meds. Currently, the drug company actually pays for mine because my specialist happened to write a letter to get me compassionate coverage. But when I was on different meds, then I would reach my deductible. I don't anymore, but I would reach my deductible within the first couple months of the year and would not have to pay for any of my prescriptions after that. And in terms of hospital stays, yeah, we pay for our healthcare in our taxes. So we still end up like paying out for it, but like when you go to a hospital, you don't have to pay because you paid in your taxes. Basically, like every time I've had a hospital stay, I haven't had to pay for that stay. What's tricky about our system, because everyone's paying a certain amount of taxes and everyone then gets free, so to speak, healthcare. Our wait times for different like tests, like if I need an MRI for either my heart or my GI tract, or um, a referral to a new specialist. All of our wait times are quite substantial. So that's a downside to our system. Um, but I mean, in terms of the prescription side and getting like my medication, like it's been great.
Yeah, that sounds
Um,
awesome. So, and you have not had the aspect of the the discussion in the States is always pre-existing conditions, and Turner
yeah.
syndrome is a pre-existing condition.
Mhm.
So you have not had that dynamic of if something will be covered because of Turner's or not.
Yeah, no. I haven't had to deal with any discussions because here, like, if something weren't to be covered through our MSP or pharmacare, um, that's that would be more something like the doctors would deal with to get you um, covered. Like I think I've more had that with my Crohn's, those discussions, like I said, having to reach out to the drug companies for compassionate coverage. Because always with the drug companies, like when you're talking about really expensive medications, and I mean like one shot of my medication, like one injection of my Crohn's medication is like way over $1,000 an injection. So when you're talking about that big bucks, like they want you to try the least expensive medications for your condition first. And so the only problems we run into and where my doctor has needed to intervene is in explaining why I can't take the less expensive ones because I've had reactions to them and just failed them. So that would be the only problem I've run into where my doctor has been like, we might not be able to get this covered. So we might not be able to get you on this medication.
But overall, it sounds really good. And that's awesome that your doctor was able to step in that way and help.
Yeah, yeah. Because dealing with that, or like myself, like I know for you guys in the States, like fighting with the drug companies yourself can be a huge pain and stress.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Yeah. Dealing with, so it in the States, it really, not all healthcare companies, not all health coverage is the same. So
right.
it
Yeah.
depends on what company you're with for
Mhm.
how that can go and how well
Mhm.
you can kind of navigate things, like
Mhm.
how much you might run into certain things not being covered. Um,
Mhm.
Thankfully, I have always had coverage that has been great for
Mhm.
everything I've
Yeah.
needed.
Yeah.
Um, so it's more of a situation of not all health coverage is created equal. And
Yeah.
yeah. So
And I mean, to say, I mean, we have something similar if you get outside of like, so for something like not everybody has extended health coverage. Like we still have need something here in Canada called extended health coverage, which you usually get through your workplace, and that would be for like dental visits, um, eyeglasses, massage therapy, those kind of things. So, um, dental visits, especially, can be very, very expensive.
oh yeah.
And different extended health coverage will be like depending which company your workplace is through or whatever is going to be different. They're going to cover a different amount. So that would be where we would sort of have a tiny bit of an understanding about
Yes.
that.
Yeah, that sounds similar. And our dental and um, eye care and health insurance they all kind of work the same way in that way. And
Hmm.
um, yeah, thankfully, I have not run into too many issues. I have seen some really great improvements in switching. Um, but my experiences with all of them that I've been on, all health coverage I've
Hmm.
had, have been pretty decent.
Yeah.
So it's always something that I'm interested in because especially when you get into like that the whole pre-existing condition and a healthcare system
Hmm.
as it pertains,
Hmm.
like one healthcare system over another in comparison to how
Hmm.
somebody with something like we have
Hmm.
fares in those systems is such
Hmm.
an intriguing conversation to me because it's
Hmm.
so incredible the difference insurance can make for you.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Okay, so what would you say is currently the biggest lesson you feel like you've learned through having Turners? Because I feel like it impacts all of us in some way.
Oh, well, that is, hmm. I mean, I think one thing I think about I think it gives you such a different understanding and sense of compassion um for anybody kind of marginalized, because I think unless you've been part of sort of um a minority group or community, I don't think you can fully understand what it's like. I think too, not to take life for granted, like it gives you such a like life truly is a miracle. I mean, we beat very, very like low like odds of making it to
Yes.
term, so to overcome that and just I mean, as a Christian, a verse like that in Psalms, like when it says, I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made, like you knit me together in my mother's womb. Um, like we are not a mistake, no matter how much the world might want to tell us that, or how much we might feel that way. Like every life is a miracle. So, yeah.
I love that. I think that's probably the biggest message I try to get across, because so many with Turners struggle with seeing their value because of
Mm-hmm.
all of the different ways we're impacted, whether it's physical traits, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
infertility, all of the different aspects that pop up.
Mm-hmm.
Um, oh man, I want to reiterate, we are not a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
God wasn't surprised by it. He wasn't caught off guard. He wasn't thrown off.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't,
Yeah.
oh, that's a weird one. I haven't seen that before. Like none of that. He knew it, and
Mm-hmm.
we were not, while we see the things that it affects as mistakes,
Mm-hmm.
maybe,
Mm-hmm.
they were not mistakes. We are not mistakes. And
Mm-hmm.
just reminding ourselves of that is incredible.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think, it shaped my character in a way that I think I wouldn't have gotten otherwise, because, like to overcome the things that I went through,
I think your audio stopped working. I think your I think your microphone stopped working.
we
Oh,
have to overcome beauty is. Because I mean, I could look at my short stats. I beat those on everyone else. Like stuff working? Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Is it on?
It just played the whole audio of everything you said after you had like the picture was current, but the audio
A
was,
delay.
oh man, that was interesting.
Technical difficulties.
It like glitched and it stopped giving me the audio but kept giving me the video, and I'm like, oh, what happened? So
Oh, technology.
you were on such a good point too. So
Yeah.
I heard part of it when it played back. That was an interesting experience of how it played back. So you were saying what we go through.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it really helps build character. And I mean, I like I was saying, like we could look at all these things that are different about us: web necks, short stature, the fact that we can't have children, and think that it could give us such a low view of ourselves. But I think that's why I find my faith so helpful, because grounding me, especially in that verse, that God knows every inch of me, created every inch of me. And again, just to keep reiterating that point, because I know for so many years with Turner syndrome, my sense of self-esteem, like throughout school, like high school, middle school, elementary school, was just so low. But then grounding myself in the verses of what God says about us, and I think it makes you turn to those kind of things, having this condition, in such it just really makes you turn to that and cling to those verses, and really learn to view yourself and others through those eyes of, just such compassion and love. And yeah.
Yeah. I think for me, I mean, I have some of it I would have had anyways, but it definitely makes me more like I am such a caregiver and
Mm-hmm.
making sure everybody is okay. And
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, that's where a lot of that empathy comes from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I mean, partly like my job, I'm a medical office assistant. And so part of the reason, like, I really wanted to be in the medical field in some way is because I know how important it is for those coming in for appointments to be greeted by a friendly face. Because I know from past experience, like with going into doctor's appointments, like it's a nerve-wracking thing. And to have someone who can show you compassion from the first minute that you walk in and just make you feel so comfortable is so, like, yeah, it's so important.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I think there's just something, I don't know, that really, like, we want to make sure others have
Mm-hmm.
what we know we need or benefit from.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why a lot of us are in jobs in the medical field or a
Mm-hmm.
caregiving field of some kind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So, so what would you say, you you mentioned a little bit of the medications you're on. Has there
Mm-hmm.
been anything in that journey, like did you have a journey finding ones that worked for you? Um, are you on a specific kind of HRT? Like, what has that looked like for you?
Yeah. So, um, right now, yeah, I started HRT, I think around 11. Um, and it estrogen by pill form for a few years. And then I think by 14, I was put on the progesterone alongside estrogen. And then the next year, switched to the pill. And I'm still on the pill, but that's something I'm kind of now doing more research on, as I've learned um, just a lot more through having an autoimmune disease about different medications and the effect that they can have
Yeah.
um, on your body. That's something I'm looking to talk to my endocrinologist about. And it's not to say that the pill has been terrible for me, but like my pediatric endocrinologist, um, when we brought up the concern, like I I didn't develop maybe as much physically as I may have wanted to. So I don't know if the dosage was correct, but he just didn't seem to take my concern seriously. Um, So I think, um, you know, that's where too I say, for parents of girls with TS who may be watching this, or other girls with TS, like, speak up if you don't feel like something with your medication is working properly, right? And make sure you, again, find someone who's going to listen to those concerns, because, yeah, I mean, that's something too that I had to work through with my self-esteem, feeling like I didn't quite make it through development, um, um, physically. So I'm wanting to switch to something maybe more natural that my body might absorb a bit better. I mean, I do get a monthly cycle. It's not like like I say, it's not like it's not fully working for me. Um, and in terms of my Crohn's meds, that was a journey too, because not everybody's body is the same. Not everybody's body is going to respond to medication the same, and that's like, so I'm currently on the third med that we've tried for my Crohn's, and it's finally working, and it's one that seems to have fewer side effects than the other ones. But yeah, I mean, that's, I think, what got me looking into my Turner's meds more too, is learning, like, not everybody's body, like I say, responds the same. And that's why I think the problem with some endocrinologists is they give you what's the most convenient,
Yeah.
right? But they don't necessarily take the time to explain to you the other options that may be available, and explain to you that everybody's body works different. This may not work for you, and let's follow up and chat about that. Like, I found, through my journey, both with Turner's and with Crohn's disease, that advocating for yourself with your medical team is extremely important, because sometimes you have to be the one to speak up. And I think that's something too with my confidence in Turner syndrome that for a long time I didn't necessarily have. I didn't necessarily like to have hard conversations or rock the boat.
Yeah.
Especially with my doctor, didn't want to get on the wrong side of my doctors. And so, I just kind of let things be. But I've learned that that's not necessarily the best.
Yeah. Yeah. And oh man, it's hard because we do want to respect their view as the person that they went to medical
Mm-hmm.
school,
Yeah.
you know. However, on the other side of things is you're the one living in your body.
Yeah.
They are not living in your body. So
Mm-hmm.
they can only guess or imagine what you
Mm-hmm.
are actively feeling.
Mm-hmm.
So when you feel something is off,
Mm-hmm.
if it's off enough for you to notice, there's
Yeah.
probably something off.
Yeah.
And the brushing aside that can happen is just so hard. And especially with HRT, I feel like that's the one that TS women and girls get the least justice done to us with, because yeah, all bodies are not made the same. All bodies are not going to react the same.
Mm-hmm.
Medical history included, your risk of certain side effects, your risk of long-term effects are going to be different than others. But also, yeah, when they're giving you the convenient and standard of care of what's normal, that is
Mm-hmm.
not taking into account that may not meet your needs just because it's what everybody says is the normal to give.
Yeah.
And that's what I was running into. It was not right for me,
Mm-hmm.
but it was the standard of care. So,
Yeah.
and I think
Yeah.
looking deeper into the whole HRT process and how that's determined, how that's applied is
Mm-hmm.
really the biggest aspect of things I would like to see more research on.
Yeah. 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 Because I mean, if your hormone levels aren't balanced properly, like there's a lot that goes along with that.
Absolutely.
Even not even, yeah, physically, sure, but also mentally, emotionally, lots of different things. And I think that's why looking at healthcare and a person like holistically, like viewing medicine holistically, I think is something that in the Western part of the world here, we aren't so great at yet.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I think some of these conversations are finally starting to happen. And I think the way it gets pushed even more is by us advocating for ourselves.
Yeah, yeah, for
Because those
sure. Yeah.
experiences are such lessons that both you and the doctor have, where you come out on the other end of figuring whatever it is out, learning a ton from that you may have not learned had the status quo been kept.
Hmm. Yeah.
So that turns into a little rant for me every time because it's something I'm so passionate about, especially with everything recently for me. But what
Yeah.
what would you say, or maybe it's the same for you, what would you say is the biggest aspect of everything to do with Turner's that you would like to see more research on, or just to understand better?
Um, oh, I mean, the whole thing, but I'll get more specific. I mean, it's still such a newly researched thing, but I mean, like you, like my parents, the information they got in the 90s was not um like what it is today even. But I think yeah, more research on the effects of different types of HRT, because they do come, especially the pill comes with a lot of risk factors. And, seeing how different forms impact physical health, mental health, all those different things. And I think too, what they've, yeah, and I think, making sure that each girl and her family with TS is given all the options. Um, and I mean, I think too, that same goes with the growth hormone treatment. Like, I think it is becoming more standard now that everybody does it, but back in the day, it wasn't. And I mean, I feel like sometimes girls with TS, when we're that young, like when I was 8 years old, I wouldn't have wanted a shot every day.
Yeah.
But I think the endocrinologists, having better conversations with the parents, like, um, your child may not want this now, but down the road, I think this is why it's a good idea that you go this route. Like, with any of the medications, HRT, growth hormone. So I think hopefully the information, the pamphlets that parents are given, and the information they're given by endocrinologists is better now. But I think, yeah, for sure, like, you know, explaining the different options and yeah, researching the different risk factors so that they do give the best option for each person rather than just sticking to one.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think part of that shift is just doctors being reminded that this is not a one size fits all condition. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's very unique in that because it gets compared to Down syndrome a lot. I think just
Mm-hmm.
because it also has to do with chromosomes and
Mm-hmm.
also has syndrome. But
Mm-hmm.
Turner syndrome is so much more volatile in
Mm-hmm.
how it manifests than Down syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
um, so when you're applying that same mindset, it just doesn't work.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think too, like if they would research HRT more, like I think they would find some really interesting stuff on how it can impact mental health, and anxiety. Like, because, like I said, the balancing of the hormones is extremely important and making sure that each girl fully goes through puberty the way that they should and want and feels comfortable. That's extremely important because if the hormones are off, it can really do some damage to our emotional health.
Oh, yeah. Especially, I mean, I remember the stark contrast in how I felt going from one level to another just in my
Mm-hmm.
estrogen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, it has a
Yeah.
major impact on our mental health. And oh man, mental health is a whole other big
Yeah.
topic that there's so much to, but it's
Yeah.
important.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah.
So, thank you so much for talking with me. Is there anything else you wanted to share that we haven't touched on?
Um. mm, no, I mean, I think we covered a lot of great stuff. I mean, again, I just want to reiterate, like make sure that you have a medical team around you that you feel comfortable with, because that makes a huge difference. Like a support system and a good support system, and that you speak up because um, we you never know what difference that can make, speaking up for yourself. And maybe there's options out there that you didn't know about before that a practitioner you feel comfortable voicing concerns with can bring up for you. Um, and just to every girl with TS out there, just know that you are worth it. Like, you deserve to feel your best, to feel confident, and just, yeah, just know that you survived incredible odds. And so don't be afraid to speak up for yourself. Like, don't let having this condition make you feel like you're less than and that you don't deserve that, because you do. You deserve the best care possible.
Amen. Yes. Um, okay. Oh man, I that's a perfect note to leave it on. Thank you so much again, Jessica. It was so great talking with you.
Yes, great talking with you too. And again, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening.
Yes, you too. All right.
Bye.